That's gay. Those two words put together have become an offensive saying when they mean something so beautiful, love for the same sex. When I was in middle school and high school, I was closeted. I didn't really know my sexual identity, but I knew I wasn't straight. I heard my classmates using the saying, "that's gay," all the time. When I heard these sayings, though, it was never in a good way. It was to make fun of someone or something, having nothing to do with being gay. Saying something is gay as a joke is a way people might try to sound cool or to put others down. Hearing these comments made me think being gay was a bad thing, or that it was seen as weak. I didn't want to be associated with it the way they made it sound like a joke, hence why I didn't come out till college. Something that may seem not huge, like saying that's gay, can actually have a huge effect on this community, and we should steer away from saying this. What we're going to be talking about in this podcast today is the LGBTQI community, which is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. For years, this community has experienced discrimination because it is considered abnormal to some people. However, it is not abnormal to be a part of this community, but years of oppression and hate has caused great distress within. It is completely normal and common to be gay, and it is a real thing. No matter what is considered normal, which in the 1900s and earlier times, the standard has been cisgender couples, meaning man and woman. During this time, a small portion of people were stepping outside their born gender, but not many, until more recently. As well as stepping out from their born gender, they have come out as liking the same sex. Over the past couple years and decades, times have changed, and many people are more able to freely express themselves based on civil rights protections. However, students who are a part of this community or families are experiencing bullying and harassment. The United States has protections for families a part of the LGBTQ called Title IX, which I will discuss more later on. While it is extremely important to protect everyone a part of the LGBT community and everyone in general, we need to focus on our youth and protect them. The LGBTQ youth reported in 2021 that 75% of the youth in this community reported they were being bullied in some way. 40% of youth lesbians have considered suicide in the past year, and 13% of that has attempted. That number is way too high. It doesn't seem like those numbers are a lot, but that affects a great deal of students in our country. 70% of youth lesbians have experienced anxiety and 52% have experienced depression. 81% of youth LGBTQ members have wanted mental health services, but 56% of them did not receive any. With the rise in mental health concerns, we need to have more access to help for our students. 56% of students did not get help, and that number is concerning. It is way too high. While schools are a place for education and learning, they should also be a resource for students' mental health and safety. Being a part of the LGBTQ community should not be a crime. It should not make you be seen as any less. So many people, especially our youth, struggle to come out and tell people about their sexual identity or gender identity based on previous reactions and people's views, like homophobia, which I will also dive into later. Adolescents are being kicked out of their houses, they are in unsafe houses, and they are not being supported, which can later lead to homelessness, drug abuse, or suicide. Mental health is also greatly affected by discrimination, leading to anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues. Like the statistics we saw earlier. The youth need to be protected to avoid going down a path where this can happen. Protecting our youth starts with safe places in schools or within the community that students can go to if they need help or support. Most schools do have clubs or safe spaces, but in some areas and for some students, it may not be enough. Protecting our youth is the top priority, and no one deserves to feel like they cannot be who they are, especially at school. Now that we have a brief understanding of the topics we are going to discuss, let's discuss the history of the LGBT community and what is still going on today that has impacted it. Lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transgenders, or queer people, have been around for a very long time. And ever since homosexuals have been around, so is homophobia. Homophobia is a very large topic that is deeply rooted into so many problems. Homophobia is being prejudiced against gay people. Gay people have been around since as long as we know. There's notes of it in the Bible, but it is kind of seen as forbidden. Because of these early on ideas within the church and within people of power, it has been seen as a taboo, meaning people are afraid of it or they don't really agree with it. Unfortunately, this idea that being gay and that it's not okay to be gay has stuck in a lot of people's minds and exists today, still why we have homophobia. In the 80s, the AIDS crisis was happening. The AIDS crisis was when a lot of gay men were being diagnosed with AIDS. AIDS is an autoimmune disease. And as a result of these diagnoses, the media coverage and people were targeting gay people, calling them names and refusing to go near them. A common misconception at this time was that if you touch someone with AIDS, then you will get AIDS, which is not true at all. A lot of lesbians at the time took on nursing men with AIDS because people were refusing to touch them. The lesbians had also run blood drives to match the demand of blood, and that blood would be given and donated to HIV patients. This period really affected the LGBTQ community, and it wasn't that long ago. Already people were hating and unsupportive to this community, and the AIDS crisis was just a way people jumped on that and found a reason to hate, even though nobody had the correct information on the disease and made a lot of assumptions around it. Homophobia is a huge part to why people struggle to come out and find support. A huge reason why young kids are being bullied in the hallways at school, and the same reason kids want to commit suicide or run away from where they don't feel like they belong. In the United States, we have seen laws in place that directly target this community, starting with, in 2022, which is very recent, Florida's governor signed the Don't Say Gay bill. This bill was set in place to prohibit talking about gender identity and sexual orientation in grades K to 8. Educators are not allowed to intentionally provide curriculum on sexual orientation and gender identity in grades 4 to 12. If a student identifies with a pronoun that is not their birth sex, educators are not allowed to call them by their new pronoun, or it is strictly prohibited. Not only does this law take away the right to be a different pronoun, it also takes away a lot of books. This law restricts students from expressing themselves and feeling safe. Title IX is a huge protector for LGBTQ from discrimination and harassment. However, how can they put this bill into place when being who you are is a civil right? This bill puts youth in Florida who identify as something else in danger. There is already a stigma on being gay, and this will worsen students' views on the LGBTQ. We will only be going backwards in our country. Mental health of LGBTQ will not become any better with this bill in place. This is not doing anyone any better, and there is no reason why we should be taking this away from people, especially children. The Florida Don't Say Gay bill isn't the only law that puts this community in danger. In 2022, Alabama passed a law that makes it a felony if doctors provide gender-affirming care to patients, which means students or people who want to transition are not allowed to. This law also makes it so transgender people cannot go into the bathroom they have transitioned to. There's a lot of controversy around this topic. Adding in bathrooms that are for both genders in public areas are a comfortable idea. This law makes it so transgender people are not safe and not safe to be who they are. This puts a target on them, not allowing them to transition at all. There are medical procedures and processes that trans people may seek out. However, in Alabama and a few other states, they would not be able to do this. This needs to be changed and stopped for the safety of our trans youth here in the United States. Putting laws like this into action is extremely detrimental on this community and disregards everything we have worked towards building equality. Both the Don't Say Gay bill and the Alabama transition laws are two examples of laws targeting this community. There is more, and they seem to want to present themselves in more states. Be aware of what these can do to a portion of our youth and human population in the United States. Think of how others would feel and understand that if it's not for something that you might need, it is something that somebody else might need. There is one law that works towards the protection of this community, and that is the Title IX law, which I have already mentioned earlier. The Title IX law bans harassment against same-sex families or families associated with LGBTQ at federally funded schools in the United States, mainly meaning public schools. This law greatly impacts the protection of this community and is a stepping stone to having our youth protected against discrimination, but this also This law can impact families by protecting them from hate and bullying and homophobia. This law allows students to voice their support for the LGBTQ, allows them to create groups or clubs of support and voice and represent anything having to do with or for the LGBTQ community. While this law is in place, though, and has been since 1972, this community is still experiencing high rates of discrimination and has been ever since. This law is good and is something that is appreciated, but it is simply not enough. With other laws that target this community, it doesn't make sense how this law is supposed to protect families and students, while in some states they are being hurt. The fight for equality is not over. There are many people who are in school or older in the community that are activists. LGBTQ has unfortunately become a political topic, which it should be far from. Being a part of this community is real. It has nothing to do with what we are capable of, what we view, or what we value. Some people a part of this community may express themselves more or be different from other kids, but that is not a crime. It is beautiful. Adolescents deserve to feel safe and express themselves. At this age, they will go to school every day. It is not a choice. We cannot send our youth to places that they will feel unsafe rather than accept them for who they are. There is a few activists that have been speaking upon this issue, and I'm going to be talking about a 17-year-old inclusion activist. Rebecca Bruchhoff has been advocating for trans rights and LGBTQ rights since she was 11 years old. Rebecca is a trans girl who has been speaking out to the people at a young age. She published a book about inclusivity within children and has spoken at many conferences and churches. Her voice has helped the Gender Cool Project, which is a youth-led organization to bring positive change to the country and world. A huge thing that Rebecca did was starting her own book drive. This book drive encourages people to donate gender-inclusive and any LGBTQ representative book. These books then get donated to community organizations, libraries, churches, or schools. With the recent banning of these books in some states, this allows for some representation to be possible, which is important. Students in schools need representation of LGBTQ books, even if it is considered controversial. There is gay people in the world, and there is children that are gay, and they need to be seeing this to feel safe and supported and accepted in our country. We cannot eliminate these books, and with Rebecca's program, we are allowing people to get access to them. This can help so many members of our youth see representation and feel good about their own identity. Rebecca's drive represents characteristics of being a willful girl. A willful girl is something my childhood studies class dove deep into this year. Being a willful girl is fighting for something with your whole heart and being focused on making a change. For a long time, and even still, some people say that being willful comes off as too strong or that we should not be willful. Rebecca has shown that being willful can impact the community, as her book idea and voice has spread to so many people. There's many more activists, and people are doing things for the rights, but Rebecca is an activist for children all over. The simplest way to get involved with supporting the LGBTQ community is to be an ally. If you know anyone in this community, be supportive. It is not a crime to be a part of this community, like mentioned earlier, and we should not be resentful to those who express themselves in this way. Members of this community need acceptance and support, and that is easy to give. Spread love and kindness to everyone, no matter their sexual orientation or how they identify. Allow your presence to be a safe space for people, and allow people to express themselves freely. It does no harm to yourself to allow others to freely express themselves. Being educated is what we can do to protect this community. Educate your children on the LGBTQIA families. Teach them acceptance and welcoming rather than discrimination. The worst thing we can do is shut this community down or treat it like it doesn't exist. This is a topic that is controversial to some people. Some people don't agree with this community or support it. But this community is real, and we cannot pretend that it isn't. I am a part of this community myself, and the biggest thing after coming out was the support from the people around me. Having people around me who didn't care that I liked girls, only cared that I was happy, was so needed and so refreshing. I am very lucky to have a beautiful experience with the ones around me and to be supported. And if I didn't, I don't know where I would be. I put myself in the shoes of others, especially in this community. Like I just mentioned, I am a part of this community and have had support, but I know people who haven't. These people are unhappy. They feel unloved and ashamed. They feel ashamed because of how the people in their lives treated them in the situation. Not necessarily be ashamed of being gay, because there's nothing wrong with being gay, but how people value and look at it makes us feel like we should be ashamed. This podcast was important to me, so we don't make people feel like this again. We get the word out and spread awareness of how being discriminated for loving people should not be a thing. As I said earlier, I used to sit in class and hear that's gay, and I didn't feel good about myself. I was upset with how my classmates could talk about this as if it was nothing. I never want any of our youth to feel like this, and I